Hi gang, this is Mike G from Mr. GTV and MrMikeGarner.com, and I want to ask you a question. How do you know what's real and what's not real? There's so much misinformation, propaganda, fake news, virtual reality simulations in films. I look at mainstream media and take it with a pinch of salt, and I'm also very much into the truth movement. But is it the truth? And at the end of the day, does it matter? There's certain things that you've got to be aware of, particularly when it's right in front of you. In other words, when I was asked to have this, I made a decision for myself. Those people who made a different decision, I respect and love them to have the autonomy to make their decision. But all of a sudden now that seems to have disappeared because of the new crisis, and they're already prepping us for the next crisis and the next crisis, and it just seems to be one thing after another, which I've talked about probably for the last 5 years, even before this shit show started. And I'm always talking about, when your life or the world is a shit show, we've got to learn to shift. So my original question is, what's real? What can you believe? And what I'm going to say is that if it's not directly affecting you, and this sounds like I'm almost saying don't be caring, but if it's not directly affecting you and you can't do something positively or constructively that makes you feel good changing it, then there's no point worrying about it. I have a wonderful expression because I run what I like to call a team of spiritual warriors. My Mike Body Spirit group is training people, as did Reiki On, as did Mind Focus groups, as did my Genesis program. It's all about holistically, clinically, corporately creating people who can assist in the shift of consciousness. Because at the end of the day, the only thing that you can trust is something that you've had conscious contact with. In other words, if somebody else has told you something, then is it true? If somebody else is talking to you on television or a politician, or you hear something, but it's hearsay, it's from a third party, and we're led to believe that these organisations are authorities and that we should understand, which means that we should stand under these authorities. And I'm saying don't, because you don't know what to believe. I don't know what to believe. I trust my 5 unique personal physical senses: what I can see, what I can feel, what I can hear, what I can smell, what I can taste, right in front of me. And I even question that at times, because reality is malleable based on mindset, but that's another conversation. But I'm far more prone to believing something I've had personal, intimate contact with. It's in front of me. I can see it, I can touch it, I can smell it, I can taste it, I can hear it, than anything that comes to me from the world through the media, or from gossip, or from some third party. But then I'm also a massive believer in engaging my extra senses to even make extra sense out of my 5 physical senses. That although I might see somebody that's nicely dressed and talking politely, I might get a sense and intuition that they're not trustworthy and they're talking bullshit. And I'm sure you've all had that. that you can't always believe what you see, that you can't always believe what you personally hear, that you're being duped, that you might be told something's organic and you taste it but it doesn't feel organic or taste organic, that it's been packaged in a way to deceive you. And that's happening very much at the moment with things, and the science is all being changed, that what we've known for decades and centuries in fact is all being rewritten. So what can you believe? And in this state of disbelief and distrust, that's all, in my opinion, socially engineered to put you into fear and confusion, what do you do with it? Well, my answer is simply this: witness it. Become the witness, or a word I prefer is the experiencer, and don't go into judgment. Things are what they are. You don't have to know everything. You don't have to make a decision. You can just be the observer. Now there's another good word: witness, experiencer, observer. You don't have to attach to these things, and when you don't attach, they can't personally get to you. And some people go into what's commonly known, a new word that's reared its head recently, is cognitive dissonance, which means people have had enough and they unplug. And I'm always talking about unplugging from the matrix. But when you unplug and you go into cognitive dissonance, then you're actually going into what I would call freeze. There's three Neanderthal primeval responses when you are reacting, and one is fight, one is flight, and the other one is freeze. And this stuff, cognitive dissonance, is an expression of freeze. It's like you don't know what to do, you don't know what to believe, you don't know what to say, and you become numb. And there's so many people at the moment that are numb. And when we have a population that's numb and frozen in cognitive dissonance, then it's very easy for you to be controlled. It's very easy for you to be told to understand this stuff that doesn't make sense, which means that you stand under these authorities that really are not democratically in a position to dictate to you, but they are. And even the government that are there to govern your mentality, government, are taking advantage of our cognitive dissonance, the fact that we've had enough, which is what it was all designed to do, to overload and to separate and divide and to rule. Rule yourself by becoming the witness. Observe with interest, but don't attach. Don't become a victim. And as much as going into freeze is not helpful, it locks you up, and there's no pleasure in freeze. A lot of people are going into flight, running away, switching it all off, which again I commend. Switch it off, but you've got to switch it off and still be the witnesser, the experiencer, the observer. You can't switch it off and turn a complete blind eye, because although I'm teaching don't do anything until it's right in front of you, you can't be ambushed by this stuff. And if you switch it off, then you could be ambushed, because it could all be accelerating towards you and you don't know about it. And definitely don't go into flight or fright or fight. Flight and fright leads to depression, it leads to suicide, and there's plenty of that. It leads to people having mental, emotional, physical breakdown. And fight Well, that's just violence. And that's like a mini war that you either have with yourself, because you beat yourself up, or you beat up all your loved ones, or what are perceived enemies, but they're not enemies, because we're all in this together in the oneness. But it's turning us against each other. And then there's these fights, which is what the ruling elites want, because then we're easy to control when we're all fighting each other. But violence, conflict, adrenalizes you. It involuntarily adrenalizes you, accelerates you, it toxifies you biochemically with cortisol, takes away your peace of mind, robs you of energy, and puts you into a vibration that's not helpful for you, anybody around you, the world, the universe, or anybody. Wars, conflict, violence never solves anything. Love does, peace does. So all you can do as the witness, the experiencer, the observer, is access peace of mind, which will restore your health and energy, and be loving and kind, which is constructive and not destructive of yourself and everybody else. There's a lovely story of a Zen master who is out with a student who's having great difficulty in achieving Zen. Zen is just, it means correct living, clear living. And he's been a student for about 10 years. So he's still a beginner in Zen. It takes a lifetime. And you might not even achieve it in this lifetime. You might have to have many lifetimes, and that's another story about reincarnation and the eternal concept of consciousness that survives many bodies. And if you don't believe that, we need a chat. But the student says to the Zen master, I just can't achieve Zen. And they're out on this walk, and the Zen master says, can you hear that river in the distance, in the mountain? And the student struggles. No. He says, just be still and listen. And as he creates stillness and switches off the world, he starts to tune in to the trickle of the stream. He says, aha! Yes, I can hear it. And the Zen master says, that is a gateway to Zen. Start there. And from there, you'll walk on the Zen path. So that's using auditory, physical senses. It could be that as the witnesser you see something, focus on a flower or a candle flame or an object. It might be that you find Zen in a taste, in a touch, in a hug, in a texture, in a colour. It might be that you find it in a smell. You can access any of your 5 physical senses and focus on that as the observer, the experiencer, the witness. And in that moment of concentration, that moment of focus with no distractions other than the object that you're putting your attention on, that you can start to find Zen, peace of mind, stillness. You detach from everything that's unimportant and focus within, using an external object as an object of fascination to create the Zen state. And then it's holding that, it's using everything in the world, all this shit show, as objects of fascination, and just be fascinated by it. and allow everything on the news, in gossip, on mainstream media, on social media, what you hear down the pub, all your personal circumstances, whether it be debt, illness, adversity, imbalance, chaos, confusion, to focus on it and to use that which is sometimes desirable, but more often than not at the moment undesirable, as a tool to create Zen. Even pain. I learnt a long time ago that my spine pain, if I ignore it, it won't go away, as many people like to say. Just ignore it, it'll go away. No, it won't. Make a friend with it. I used to teach many years ago when people were frightened of being thrown. Because you get thrown by somebody who's 5'10" and you come crashing down on a crash mat, or even on a concrete floor, or for a pavement, or a wooden floor in a church hall where you're practicing, as was my case. And it's not desirable to come crashing down on a hard surface. It's like this road now, it's very bumpy. But you can use that undesirable experience as an opportunity to go into stillness. You can go into stillness and access your pain and get some control around it and become Zen within your pain. Use the pain as a pathway to self-control and peace. Use pain as a pathway to peace. And pain comes in many forms, doesn't it? We see things, it's painful. We get the sense of things, painful. Painful, horrible, shitty world. So many people are thinking now, and they want to go into cognitive dissonance, freeze, fight or flight. Don't. Go into peace, go into stillness. Listen to everything, observe everything. Tune into it at the exclusion of everything else. And as you tune into the stream, or a taste, or a smell, or a touch, or a sight or a sound, you block the world out. You're totally focused as the experiencer, as the observer, as the witness, on the one thing, and everything else gets tuned out. You find that you have no pain. You can't find the pain. You can't find the pain because your attention isn't on the pain, it's on the flame, or it's on the taste, or it's on the smell, or it's on the colour, or it's on the object, or it's on the sound. You can't find the pain, or you can find your stillness and peace in that moment, and then you just want to train your mind to have a series of still, peaceful Zen moments, and use all this shit as a gateway to shift. It's so powerful, it's so simple, but the question is, will you do it? Will you do it? On this day, having learnt to do it myself for decades, right the way back to my martial arts days, where, as I say, I didn't want to get thrown, I didn't want to get punched in the face. Punch in the face, a kick in the nuts, being thrown by somebody who's 5'10" and being slammed down on some church hall floor was my pathway to Zen, to peace, to confidence, to stillness, to personal power, to self-control. And I suggest that all this shit in the world which is painful is your pathway too. Have a wonderful, powerful, peaceful day. Find your Zen in all this shit and shift. Take care.